So let's start it. Yeah, we are ready to go. Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Rahul Saraswat, final year student at final year student at Gujarat National Law University. This is inaugural session and our first webinar with Mr. Arjun Natarajan, and we are very grateful to him for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our request. I'll briefly give you an overview how this webinar will be conducted. First, I'll introduce the LexADR and the speaker. Then we'll go on having the webinar. I'll introduce a little bit about the topic. Then the sir will continue the discussion and tell you the nuances of section 30 and 32 and what is his practical experience with respect to the dispute settlement during the arbitral proceedings. So LexADR is an online platform where we are just trying to build a community of ADR enthusiasts who are students and practitioners who are practicing in the field of ADR. So the ultimate aim of LexADR is to build a community so that we all together can further and promote in the growth of alternative dispute resolution in India. Today we have Mr. Arjun Natarajan. He'll be speaking on the topic settlement of dispute during arbitral proceeding. He is a practicing advocate with more than 10 years of experience in New Delhi. Recently he has been appointed as sole arbitrator by the Delhi High Court in a Section 11 petition, and he'll be representing he'll be a sole arbitrator in that. So, sir, let's just start without wasting the time, and let's just start with the topic. So what idea I have about the topic is that when I read section 30 and section 32 of Arbitration and Conciliation Act, I got the idea that during the arbitration proceeding, the parties on their own can, without continuing the arbitration, can go for other means of dispute resolution like mediation and conciliation. But these sections are not much discussed before in any of the article. I don't think I haven't read these things before, and it is very new concept to me. So please tell us.
Yes. See, one way of going about this is to straight away delve into section 30 and section 32. First section 30, then section 32. Essentially section 30. That is one way of doing it. That's how I would have preferred to do it. However, it's good that we had a conversation before about an hour or so when you had told me that there are some participants here, some students who are from the first year or from the second year as well. So in view of that, what I have done is that I have prepared a very short PowerPoint presentation. It's a very short one in a live lecture. By a live lecture, I mean a physical lecture in a classroom. Usually I just put this up on the whiteboard or on the blackboard, and then I just demonstrate few things because it takes a lot lesser time to demonstrate those things by way of a slide or by way of a flowchart. So of course, before I share that screen which has that very brief PowerPoint presentation, I'm posing a question, and I would request any one of the participants to just give whatever answer that they want. And please don't feel shy or coy about it, because usually the first person to respond takes a lot of time, and then after he or she responds, then everybody is responding. Okay, so therefore let that first person not take time, just say whatever you want to say. This is the question that I would want to pose, that is arbitration an adjudicatory mechanism? This is my question. I repeat the question. Is arbitration an adjudicatory mechanism? For starters, give me an answer in either yes or no.
So let's should I make a poll over it? We can conduct a poll so that we can know the answer. I have made you a co-host so that you can also get the response from directly on your screen, sir.
Okay, very well. You can conduct a poll. You put in place whatever is that thing that needs to be put in place for a poll.
Right.
And let us see how many say yes and how many say no.
Right, I'll do it.
Let me just repeat the question once again, because if you are going to answer the wrong question, then the answer will be wrong. So I'm repeating the question. in view of the repeated question, if anybody wants to revise the answer, you are most welcome to do so. The question is arbitration an adjudicatory mechanism?
Yes, the poll has been started, so people can start now answering it. %80 of the people believe that yes, arbitration is an adjudicatory mechanism.
Excellent. Which itself goes on to show that this virtual classroom is miles ahead of many other classrooms where I have given lectures surrounding dispute resolution mechanisms. However, I'm not really bothered about the 80%, I'm bothered about the 20%. So therefore, for the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is dedicated to that 20%. And on this note, I just change, or rather I'll share the screen in which there is a small PPT that I prepared. Let us approach this systematically.
Yes, sir.
When we are talking about dispute resolution mechanisms, broadly speaking, we are talking about dispute resolution mechanisms under two distinct headings. On the one side, we have litigation, and on the other side, we have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Litigation is the traditional way of resolving a dispute in which either I sue you or you sue me or we both sue each other. And where does litigation take place? Litigation takes place in a court of law. And the process of litigation is an adjudicatory process. What I mean to say by the phrase adjudicatory process is that there is a court of law which goes on to decide as to whether I am right or you are right. Or for that purpose, if I am right, then what is the consequence of I being right? What is the reward that I get for being right? So essentially, litigation is an adjudicatory process where liability is fixed, or for that purpose, entitlements are declared. So litigation is an adjudicatory process, number one. Any other dispute resolution mechanism other than litigation, any and every dispute resolution mechanism comes under the category alternative dispute resolution mechanism. There is no rocket science behind this. What is an alternative to litigation is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So far, it is so simple. So other than litigation, any and every dispute resolution mechanism, because it is an alternative to litigation, it is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Now, if we take a look at alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, then alternative dispute resolution mechanisms are once again, they can be put under two distinct categories. Firstly, adjudicatory alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. These are decision based. It's an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. That is, it is not litigation, but at the same time, it is doing exactly what litigation does. That is, litigation adjudicates, and this adjudicatory dispute resolution mechanism, which is an alternative to litigation, even in this mechanism, what takes place is an adjudication. Now, by way of an illustration to an adjudicatory decision making, by way of an illustration to an adjudicatory alternative dispute resolution mechanism, I would like to give arbitration. In fact, that's the only mechanism that I can think of when I'm talking about an ADR which is adjudicatory in nature. And there are some other ADR mechanisms which fall under the category of consensual ADR mechanisms. Now, within that category, we have negotiation, mediation, conciliation, judicial settlement, lok adalat, and so on and so forth, which is not the scope of today's lecture. Let me make that very clear. So the scope of today's lecture is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism, which is adjudicatory. I repeat, the scope of this lecture is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism, which is adjudicatory, that is arbitration. That is the scope of this lecture. Now, this sort of sets the stage for a lot of other discussions which are to take place during the course of this lecture. So I'll just take a pause and take a look at whatever comments have come, so that if there is any doubt insofar as these few aspects which I have now conveyed, then they can be addressed at this point itself.
Sir, I remember when I was studying the subject in my third year, we discussed section 32. Now I figured that I remember it while I was studying in my college in third year. So while discussing section 30 and 32 of the arbitration, which talks about further you are going to cover the sections, but now my doubt is what is settlement agreement?
One second. See, let us. I'm sorry to stop you. Let us be very systematic with this lecture. Let us not jump to section 30 and 32 at this point in time.
All right.
We will go there. That is what this lecture is about. But then let us all, even the 20%, including them, most importantly, let us ensure that they all are clear about this distinction between adjudicatory and consensual dispute resolution mechanisms.
Sure.
So I'll just take a look at the chats and just see if there is any message that has come, or if anybody has any doubt as regards understanding this concept that ADRs are either adjudicatory or consensual, and arbitration is an ADR. Undoubtedly, it is an ADR. If it is not litigation and if it is a dispute resolution mechanism, it is an ADR. No debate about it. But yes, it is an ADR, but it is an adjudicatory ADR. Why? Because in an arbitration, instead of a court, the arbitrator is deciding whether I am right or you are right. And if I am right, then what do I get? And if I am wrong, then what do I lose? This entire decision-making process, that is this adjudication, instead of being done by a court, is done by an arbitrator. Now, an arbitrator is a creation of the parties. Say, for example, Rahul and Arjun are parties to a particular dispute, and then say they appoint somebody else. I see Sandeep in the audience. Say they appoint Sandeep as the arbitrator. So the mandate which has been given to Sandeep to decide, to adjudicate the disputes between Rahul and Arjun is not by virtue of any divine providence, or it is not by virtue of the fact that the government has appointed him. It's not by virtue of the fact that there has been some process like a judiciary examination, he has qualified that and he has become a judge. Nothing. Just that there is an agreement between Arjun and Rahul to the effect that Sandeep will be an arbitrator. Now, this agreement can assume various forms. It could be a scenario in which if I invoke the arbitration, then Rahul appoints. If Rahul invokes, then I appoint. It could be a scenario that I appoint Sandeep, Rahul appoints some Mr. X, and then Sandeep and Mr. X together appoint one Miss Y, so that there are 3 arbitrators. In fine, ultimately what I am trying to convey is that irrespective of what is the process to appoint an arbitrator, that process is something which is agreed to by the parties. So therefore, that arbitrator is a creation of the parties. That is the only distinction between litigation and arbitration. That is, in litigation, you have no role to play in creating the judge, whereas in arbitration, the judge has been created only by you or by virtue of a process which you have created. Other than that, they both are largely the same. Yes, there are some procedural relaxations. Yes, arbitration is at least seemingly not that technical insofar as rules of evidence, rules of procedure, etc. are concerned. But otherwise, mind you, arbitration is not a consensual settlement process. Yes, a settlement can take place. It's most welcome if it takes place. Otherwise, please remember that arbitration is adjudicatory, just like litigation, which is adjudicatory. Let me just take a look at the chat box once again. If anyone has expressed any concerns, queries, criticisms to this view. Can you open the PPT in a full form? I tried doing that, but then if I do the slideshow, then I'm not able to cast it any which ways. After this lecture, the PPT will be shared with you. But essentially what the PPT conveys is the bifurcation aspect. So dispute resolution mechanism, litigation, ADR. Forget litigation. When we are talking about ADR, you have adjudicatory ADRs and you have consensual ADRs. In adjudicatory ADRs, you have arbitration. In consensual, you have negotiation, mediation, conciliation, judicial settlement, and so on and so forth. That's not the scope of the lecture. Now, there is a question from Ms. Namita. If parties appoint arbitrator, what about 8th schedule requirements? Let us not go that far. Let us not go that far at this point in time. Is consensual isn't adjudicatory? I'm not able to figure out what this question means. See, from what I gather from the question, the appointment of the arbitrator is consensual, but then the role which is played by the arbitrator is adjudicatory, because he is not there to bring about a settlement between the parties. Yes, you and I have agreed to appoint him, or you and I have agreed to a process by virtue of which he is getting appointed. To that extent, it is consensual. That part of the transaction is consensual. But after that, all that he is doing is he is adjudicating.
We are receiving questions which are not relevant to our topic, so let's not take them.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yes, and at this point in time, I'll just give this clarification. That is, see, it's a 1-hour lecture. On top of that, there is a technological barrier, there is a time barrier, and there are many other barriers. The more we can see, the more barriers they are. But then, let us keep this as an ongoing process. Rahul will be sharing my email address with you, and I'll also put my email address here in the chat box. After this lecture, at any point in time, if any one of you has any doubt, query, clarification, criticism, concern, whatever it is, please write to me, and let us keep this as an ongoing process, because the lecture can't go on for all times to come. But yeah, this discussion can go on for all times to come. So yes, now Rahul, let's come back.
So, I think you should first clarify the people about what is section 30 and 32, what does it say, and how we are going to discuss over it. Then I can, post my question and it become more relevant than to ask.
Very well. So what I do is, let me just take you to the Arbitration and Conciliation Act.
Guys, it was really important to discuss the very basic, or to start from very basic, because our audience consists not only of senior people or senior students, but also students from first or second years. So it's really important for them to understand what is consensual dispute resolution and alternative dispute resolution. It is important to bifurcate.
Now let us get into section 30. For a moment, please forget section 32. 32 is consequential. The chronology is 30 and then 32. So let us emphasize on section 30 to begin with. And let us approach this as systematically as possible. So I have shared the screen which shows the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Rahul?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see the index?
Yeah,
the index of the
yes,
Arbitration and Conciliation Act. You are able to see that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are talking about part 1 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. And in part 1, we are skipping all these chapters and we are straight away going to chapter 6. Now, the reason why all that we discussed all this while is because we have skipped 5 chapters of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, and we are straight away coming to chapter 6. Chapter 6, take a look at the heading of chapter 6. Chapter 6 is making of arbitral award and termination of proceedings. So it is in the context of making of an arbitral award and termination of proceedings that we are going to discuss section 30 and section 32. Let us first go to section 30. Now let us take a look at the heading of section 30. The heading of section 30 is settlement. The heading of section 30 is settlement. Now let's do a short flashback. All this while I have been saying that arbitration is an adjudicatory mechanism, right? When arbitration is an adjudicatory mechanism, then is there a scope for a settlement? That is the question. And that is the question which is answered by section 30 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. And that takes us straight into the topic, that is settlement of disputes during arbitral proceedings. So there is a dispute between Rahul and Arjun. That dispute is the subject matter of an arbitration. Sandeep is the arbitrator. This dispute is being arbitrated by Sandeep. Now, during the course of this arbitration, that is this process of adjudication by the arbitrator, some good sense prevails, and Arjun and Rahul decide to sort out their disputes in an amicable fashion. Now, as much as arbitration is an adjudicatory process, mind you, it does not prevent or prohibit the parties from getting into settlement talks or from resolving their disputes in an amicable manner, which essentially means that in the framework of an arbitral proceeding, there is scope for settlement, and this scope for settlement is encouraged and promoted by the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Now, on that note, let us straight away go to section 30. Now, let us read this very systematically. Section 30, the heading is settlement. It is not incompatible with an arbitration agreement for an arbitral tribunal to encourage settlement of the dispute. This exactly spells out what I told you before a minute or so. That is, just because there is an arbitration going on between the parties doesn't mean that the parties cannot settle. That's what is shown in this part of section 30, which I have highlighted. It is not incompatible with an arbitration agreement for an arbitral tribunal to encourage settlement of the dispute, which means the arbitral tribunal can very well encourage the settlement of a dispute. However, there are some conditions. This encouraging the settlement of disputes has to be with the agreement of the parties. Now, I would make one request to all of you. As much as we are reading section 30, whenever you read any statute, especially law students, whenever you read any statute, try to read that statute with this kind of an approach, wherein you see the name of the part, you see the name of the chapter, and keeping that overall context in mind, you see the heading of the section, and then sort of physically or mentally paraphrase the section. You have to slice and dice the section and then read it in parts. Of course, you have to read it as a whole, but then you have to go through each and every aspect of that particular section. So the first aspect is that it is not incompatible, and that it is not incompatible to encourage a settlement just because there is an arbitration agreement between the parties and there is an arbitration that is going on. However, this can be done with the agreement of the parties. With the agreement of the parties, this process of settling the dispute can be encouraged by the arbitrator. Now, how is this encouraging of a settlement done? This is done by using mediation, conciliation, or other procedures. Do you get it? So, yes, there is an arbitration agreement between Rahul and Arjun. Yes, an arbitration is going on between them. However, Rahul and Arjun have agreed that they wish to explore the possibility of a settlement. Then, in that scenario, the arbitral tribunal can go on to encourage such a settlement, and it shall do so by employing means like mediation, conciliation, or other procedures. Which essentially means that any other settlement procedure, which includes negotiation, and there are so many other mechanisms which are recognized in India statutorily, there are some others which are not recognized in India. All of those, any of those procedures can be used by the arbitrator during the course of an arbitration, during the course of arbitral proceedings. If you go on to see, this really does not exhaustively say that only mediation or only conciliation can be used. It says that the arbitral tribunal may use mediation, conciliation, or other procedures. It leaves it open-ended. Anything that can encourage a settlement between the parties, the arbitral tribunal may use such procedures. And when can this be done? It can be done at any time during the arbitral proceedings to encourage settlement. So the opening part of 30 clause 1 has the word encourage. The closing part also has the word encourage, which goes on to show that the thrust of section 30 is that let us encourage settlement. Provided the parties are agreeing, let us encourage settlement, and let us encourage the settlement by using means like mediation, conciliation, or other procedures. It could even be a mutual negotiation between the parties, of course, in the absence of the arbitrator. I'll come to that aspect. But at this point in time, what I want to emphasize is that it can be encouraged, it should be encouraged. The Act prescribes that it should be encouraged if the parties are agreeing, and this encouraging is done by using procedures like mediation, conciliation, or other procedures. Now, say for example, by resorting to these procedures, the parties actually settle the dispute, then that is what is taken care of by section 30 clause 2. If during arbitral proceedings the parties settle the dispute, the arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings, and if requested by the parties and not objected to by the arbitral tribunal, record the settlement in the form of an arbitral award on agreed terms. So 30 clause 1 is about encouraging settlement and how it shall be encouraged provided the parties are agreeing to a settlement. 30 clause 2 is about they actually ending up settling the dispute. Mind you, all of this is happening during the arbitral proceedings. Remember the context in which we are talking. We are talking within the framework of an arbitral proceeding. It is all happening during the course of an arbitral proceeding. Just because mediation has been used or conciliation has been used, the nature of the proceeding has not changed. It is still an arbitral proceeding, just that during the course of the arbitral proceeding, a mediation has started. Or for that purpose, a conciliation has started or a bilateral negotiation has started. Rahul, are you wanting to point out something?
No, so there is a clause which is really important. Is this important to put a clause for it, like there can be mediation or conciliation in arbitration agreement, or
no need.
Agreement is solely providing for arbitration as a method for dispute resolution?
Right. There is no need for the arbitration agreement between the parties to say that they can resort to mediation or they can resort to conciliation. There is no need. So if the dispute resolution clause only provides arbitration, say for example, it provides for only arbitration, and then arbitral proceedings are going on. During the course of the arbitral proceedings, if the parties want to settle, the fact that they have not mentioned any other mechanism in the agreement will not come in the way. Why? Because they are protected by section 30. Law provides for it. So an agreement does not have to provide for it separately. If the agreement is silent, then law will govern. So 30 clause 2 is about they actually ending up settling. If during arbitral proceedings, the parties settle the dispute, then what happens? They have settled, nothing survives. It's very natural, it's very logical. The arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings. So if the parties end up settling, the arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings. And if requested by the parties and not objected to by the tribunal, that is, if the parties are making such a request, and if the tribunal does not have an objection to such a request, then this settlement that has been arrived at between the parties shall be recorded in the form of an arbitral award on agreed terms. Now let's go back to basics. Arbitration is an adjudicatory process. I had emphasized on this in the beginning. The arbitrator decides whether I am right or Rahul is right, and if I am right, what do I get, and if I am wrong, then what do I lose? And that decision is given by the arbitrator in the form of an award. in which he is either fixing entitlements or he is fixing liabilities, right? However, here there has been a settlement. If the parties request that, yes, as much as we have settled, the arbitration is terminated, but if the parties say that we still want the settlement in the form of an arbitral award, and if the tribunal has no objection to this aspect, or rather this request to record the settlement in the form of an arbitral award, then it shall be recorded in the form of an arbitral award. However, it won't be an arbitral award on the substance of the dispute. Why? Because it is not deciding whether Rahul is right or Arjun is right. It will simply encapsulate the settlement between the parties in the form of an award. Now that's what is section 30 clause 2. Now let's go to section 30 clause 3. 30 clause 3 very naturally, very logically deals with how this kind of an award on agreed terms shall be made. That's the question. That question is answered by 30 clause 3. An arbitral award on agreed terms shall be made in accordance with section 31 and shall state that it is an arbitral award. Now I shall not get into section 31. All that section 31 does is it gives a format for the award and it specifies what all contents should be there in the award. So when the arbitral award is on the substance of the dispute, that is when the arbitrator is deciding who is right, who is wrong, and is giving a detailed award fixing liabilities and fixing entitlements, then such an award will have a particular format and such an award will mandatorily cover ABCD aspects. Now those very aspects and that very format will be followed by an award which is on agreed terms as well. That's what is the essence of 30 clause 3.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah.
So let's just look at the preamble of New York Convention, or in fact the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. The arbitration provides for an award. Why? Because the award is always construed when there is existence of difference or a dispute. Now here, when we are coming to a settlement, there is no difference or dispute anymore. So in such settlement agreement, if I may call it, settlement agreement is given the color of arbitral award. Would there any issue in enforcement procedure or in enforcing or executing the
your question is answered by 30 clause 4. Right. But before giving that answer, let me tell you whether it makes sense. Yes, it does make sense, because yes, the parties have settled. So therefore, there is no need for an award. But say, for example, the parties have settled and they are insisting that they want the settlement in the form of an award. Then why not? It goes back to party autonomy. You and I have settled. One way is we have settled, we don't want an award. Let us get rid of this. But the other way is that as much as we have settled, I don't want the settlement agreement to just be in the form of an agreement. I want it in the form of an award. And even the arbitrator is okay with it. In that case, the option to record the settlement in the form of an award is there. Now, say in a given case, you and I have agreed that the settlement should be recorded in the form of an award. But for some reason, the arbitrator feels that it doesn't make sense to record the settlement in the form of an award. Then the arbitrator can always refuse. That's what is covered. That's what is covered in section 30 clause 2. That is, if requested by the parties and not objected to by the arbitral tribunal. Okay. So if there is a settlement, yes, traditionally speaking, it doesn't make sense to have an award. But if the parties want and if the arbitrator has no objection, then it can be recorded in the form of an award. Now coming to the enforcement aspect. That's what is answered by 30 clause 4. Now let us read 30 clause 4. An arbitral award on agreed terms shall have the same status and effect as any other arbitral award on the substance of the dispute. Which means, say there is a dispute between Rahul and me, and the arbitrator Sandeep has given an award on the substance of the dispute saying that Arjun has to pay X rupees to Rahul. That's an award on the substance of the dispute. There is no settlement between the two. Now that award will have a certain status and effect in law, right? That is, if I don't pay, then Rahul can go on to enforce that award. If I feel that the award is bad, I can go and challenge it under section 34 on the grounds that it is violative of public policy, etc., etc. All those things. That's not the scope of this lecture. So the same status and the same effect that an award on the substance of the dispute has that very status and effect an award on agreed terms also has. So the enforcement aspect, the challengeability aspect, all those things are taken care of. Now that's what is section 30. Now, as a consequence of section 30, we'll have to get into section 32 as well. Why? Because if we take a look at section 30 clause 2, it refers to terminate the proceedings. If there is a settlement between the parties, then the arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings. Section 32 simply deals with termination of proceedings. So we have to see how the dispute gets terminated in the event that there is a settlement. But before getting into section 32, let us just take some questions. Are there any questions either from Rahul or from anybody in the audience?
So I have one question.
Yeah, you have a question.
Yeah, so then we can, I think there are some question in our chat, so we can take them also.
Yeah.
The word settlement agreement is also mentioned in section 73 of the arbitration.
Right.
So I think why I just told you that while I was studying this subject in my third year. So this case, I mean, we discussed a lot over this section. I just recalled. So this settlement agreement that we come in under section 30 would have to be complied by section 73. Is there any mandatory requirement for the same, or how settlement agreement, or what is the requirement and how should it be made?
Wait, I'll just tell you. See, section 73, yes, it talks about a settlement agreement, but section 73 is in part 3 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. And section 73 is in the context of a settlement in a conciliation.
All right.
Okay. We are not talking about a settlement in a conciliation. That's why we started with the index when I showed you part 1 and then I showed the name of the chapter.
No, sir. What
so
the
73 talks about settlements, but 73 talks about settlement in the context of a conciliation. Whereas 30 talks about a settlement in the context of an arbitration.
But would then, as per section 33, if arbitrator encouraged and the party accepted conciliation as an alternative method to arbitration, then
yes, let's address that. Now, say for example, under 30, the parties agree to conciliation as the mechanism. Okay, and then they end up entering into a settlement. Now, please remember, as much as they have adopted conciliation, they have adopted a conciliation in the framework of an arbitration, right? So therefore, what happens is that 73 will not come into play. That conciliation settlement agreement will still be governed only by section 30.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Under 32, there shall be a termination, and then if the parties want and the arbitrator doesn't object, it shall be recorded in the form of an award. It shall be exactly like an award on the substance of the dispute, and it shall have the same status and effect. So a settlement agreement under section 73 is something which is arising in a vanilla conciliation, whereas a settlement agreement under section 30 is something which is arising in an arbitration. Yes, in that arbitration, the parties may have used conciliation, they may have used mediation, they may have just resorted to mutual negotiations. Doesn't matter. Whatever mechanism they adopt, it shall be governed only by the provisions of section 30.
All right. So there are some question in the chat. Sometime arbitrator orders or ask party to reconcile the accounts. Will that be fall in section 30?
One second. Let me just open the chat box.
Yeah.
See, if the arbitrator is ordering reconciliation of accounts, then is the reconciliation being awarded, is the reconciliation being directed in the final award, or is it during the course of the arbitral proceedings? A reconciliation of award, strictly speaking, is not a settlement, because there what's happening is that the accounts are simply being reconciled, nothing else is happening, and the parties are arriving at some consensus as to what are the credit entries and what are the debit entries. That's about it. So therefore, say Sandeep is the arbitrator and he directs Rahul and Arjun to reconcile their accounts. That's not a settlement. Now say based on the reconciliation of accounts, Arjun realizes that he has got all the money that he had to get. So therefore Arjun and Rahul end up settling. then the reconciliation of accounts has resulted in a settlement between the parties. But otherwise, the reconciliation of accounts per se is not a settlement. Reconciliation of accounts means what? I sit with my books of accounts, he sits with his books of accounts, and we do the matching. That's what is reconciliation of accounts. Any other questions?
Sir, there's another important question. Is it under purview of section 30 clause 2 that an arbitrator can deny to record the settlement in the form of an arbitral award?
Yes, the statute does provide for that. The statute gives that power to the arbitrator. Let us go back to section 30 clause 2 and let me just share that screen. 30 clause 2. If during arbitral proceedings the parties settle the dispute, the arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings. And if requested by the parties and not objected to by the arbitral tribunal, record the settlement in the form of an arbitral award on agreed terms. So in a given case, the arbitrator does have the power to say that I don't think that this needs to be recorded in the form of an award. But the possibility of that happening is extremely bleak. As much as that power is with the arbitrator, what I have seen in my experience as a lawyer who represents parties in an arbitration, as well as in my capacity as an arbitrator in few cases in which I have been appointed as an arbitrator and in which settlements have actually happened, I've never seen a scenario where the arbitrator would actually go on to say that, oh, you guys want it to be recorded in the form of a settlement, but I don't think that it should be in the form of, I'm sorry, you guys want it to be recorded in the form of an award, but I don't think that it's required. Let it just be a settlement agreement. I don't think any arbitrator would actually do that as much as he has the power to do that. Statute provides that power. I see this interesting question from Mr. Aditya Prasad. What are the grounds or reasons why the tribunal would make an objection? I really can't think of any such ground, because any tribunal, any arbitral tribunal or any arbitrator in his right frame of mind would actually just go on to record it in the form of an award if the parties want. However, take for example a scenario like something like during the settlement, say both the parties have suddenly realized that they both were equally wrong. Say for example, and then they say that yes, we both were equally wrong, we just want to settle it, we are just withdrawing this. That provision is there in section 32, by the way. The parties can always withdraw the claim. Now in that scenario, the arbitrator may simply say that let me not even record it in the form of an award, let me just pass an order under section 32 and finish it off, because you both have realized that you both were wrong. See, it's a very absurd example, but I can't think of a scenario in which the arbitrator would have rightful grounds to actually say that yes, this is why I do not want to record it in the form of an award.
So, any issue with respect to enforceability of settlement agreement if it does not record in a particular award?
Yes, if it is not recorded in the form of an award, okay, and say I breach my part of the bargain in the settlement agreement, then you are left in a lurch, because then your only remedy is to sue me in a court of law for specific performance of that settlement agreement. Or there could be another possibility. Say in the settlement agreement, we put another arbitration clause saying that if disputes arise under the settlement, then we shall resolve it by resorting to arbitration. Then instead of suing me for specific performance of that settlement agreement, you will initiate another arbitration. So therefore, it is always advisable that the settlement agreement is recorded in the form of an award. It's an advisable recourse.
I think we can move on. There's a new question. So if you like to move on with section 32, we can proceed.
Yeah. You all must have seen that section 30 talks about termination of the proceedings, right? Let us just quickly go back to section 30 once. So if the parties end up settling, then what does the arbitrator do? The arbitrator or the arbitral tribunal shall terminate the proceedings. Okay. And that's what takes us to section 32, because 32 deals with termination of arbitral proceedings. Now let us read section 32 systematically. Once again, section 32 falls in the same part, that is part 1, and it falls in the same chapter which deals with making of an award. So essentially section 30 and section 32 fall in the same chapter. Making of arbitral award and termination of proceedings. So the name of the chapter itself involves termination of proceedings, and section 32 precisely deals with that aspect, that is termination of proceedings. The arbitral proceedings shall be terminated by the final arbitral award. So if there is a final arbitral award between the parties, the arbitral proceedings shall be terminated. Now, if we take it from in the context of section 30, in section 30, say the parties settle and say they make a request that please record the settlement in the form of an agreement, and say the arbitrator agrees to that request. Then he records it in the form of an award. With the recording of it in the form of an award, the arbitral proceedings shall be terminated. Why? Because it's a final award. It has the same status and effect as any other award which is on the substance of the dispute. Now that's one part. That is one way by which an arbitral proceeding can be terminated. That is by way of a final award. However, that's not the only way. There is another way. That is, if an order is passed by the arbitral tribunal under 32(2), then also the arbitral proceedings shall terminate. So there are two ways to terminate an arbitral proceeding, either by way of a final award or by way of an order, and such an order is passed under section 32 clause 2. Now let us take a look at section 32 clause 2. The arbitral tribunal shall issue an order for the termination of the arbitral proceedings where, number 1, the claimant withdraws his claim unless the respondent objects to the order and the arbitral tribunal recognizes a legitimate interest on his part in obtaining a final settlement of the dispute. This is a very simple provision. All that it says is, I am the claimant, and say Rahul is the respondent, and say, being the claimant, I want to withdraw the claim. I can do it, of course. However, say I want to withdraw the claim, and that will terminate. However, say I am withdrawing the claim and the respondent has no objection to such a withdrawal on my part, because as a claimant, I can't leave the respondent high and dry and simply withdraw my claim and go away. So when I am withdrawing the claim, if the respondent has no objection to my withdrawal, and if the arbitral tribunal feels that there is a legitimate interest for a settlement of the dispute, then the arbitral tribunal shall simply pass an award. Shall simply pass an order. Such an order will be under 32(2)(a), saying that the claimant is withdrawing, the respondent has no objection, so this withdrawal is allowed. So in that scenario, there is no need to give any reasons, there is no need to pass any award. Why? Because as a claimant, I want to withdraw. As the respondent, Rahul has no objection, so let it simply be withdrawn. The second is, the arbitral tribunal shall issue an order for the termination of the arbitral proceedings where the parties agree on the termination of the proceedings. Goes back to basics of party autonomy. Rahul and Arjun are the parties to the arbitral proceedings, and we both just agree that let us just terminate it. Then the arbitral tribunal shall simply pass an order under 32(2)(b) saying that the parties are agreeing to terminate the proceedings, so therefore the proceedings stand terminated. The third is, the arbitral tribunal shall issue an order for the termination of the arbitral proceedings where the arbitral tribunal finds that the continuation of the proceedings has for any other reason become unnecessary or impossible. Say for example, the arbitrator's fee has not been paid, for example, or say for whatever reason, say the parties are conducting themselves in a manner that the arbitrator doesn't find to be palatable. So for any such reasons, the arbitral tribunal, if the arbitral tribunal finds that continuation of the proceedings has become unnecessary or impossible, then also by way of an order under section 32(2)(c), the arbitral proceedings can be terminated. So these are ways and means of terminating an arbitral proceeding. First is by way of an award. That's a very vanilla situation. Second is by way of an order, and that kind of an order can be under 32(2)(a) or B or C. Now, we are almost towards the end of this lecture. I would like to share a certain experience that I had in a dispute in which I happened to be the arbitrator, in which the parties ended up settling the dispute. Now, this was a dispute between a builder and a buyer. This was a dispute between a builder and a buyer, and the builder had constructed almost 80% of the property. 80% of the property had already been constructed by the builder, 20% was not constructed. And the buyer had paid almost 90% of the payments. It was only 10% which was remaining. I was appointed as the arbitrator in that matter. And it was very obvious that one way or the other, this dispute will get settled. Because having paid 90%, he is not going to say that he doesn't want the house. And that's what even the buyer had told to the builder and to me in our respective presence. And even the builder was ready and willing to finish the balance 20% of the construction. Now, because I was appointed as an arbitrator in that case, mind you, my role is to adjudicate. I can't bring about a settlement between them. But when the parties expressed this concern, what I told them was that, see, I am not here to bring about a settlement between the two of you because I am an arbitrator. I am not a mediator. I am not a conciliator. However, if you are going to settle it yourselves, or if you are going to settle it by using some other mediator or some other conciliator, then I will not come in the way of such a recourse which you guys take. So what happened was that the parties resorted to negotiation, but they wanted to negotiate in my presence. I don't know for what reason. I told them that please don't negotiate in my presence because, say for example, these talks fail, then I would be privy to many discussions which have happened between the two of you. So let me get out of the room. You both sit and talk. And then whenever you feel like, I'll come back. And I told them, please don't be under the pressure to resolve it fully and finally today. You can keep this going for the next couple of days, weeks, whatever. But I am not going to be present during the course of the talks. And please don't give me status updates as to what has happened in the talks or what has not happened. Just tell me when the talks are over as to whether you guys have settled or not. Now, this went on for about a month. So whenever the arbitration would take place, they would come. We all would sit together for about 5 minutes. I would ask them what's going on. They would say still talks are going on. At times they would start updating me. I would just get up and go away because I did not want them to have their settlement talks in my presence. Why? Because say the talks fail, then I would have to adjudicate. I might get biased because I might have heard things that they are talking between themselves during the course of the settlement. Now, good sense prevailed and the parties ended up resolving the dispute. Now, when they ended up resolving the dispute, I told them that, see, I can either pass an award or I can pass an order. If you want, I can capture the settlement in the form of an award. And I gave them the pros and cons of or the pros and cons of recording it in the form of an award. All those things that we have discussed till now. However, the parties were of the view that, see, we just want to keep it simple. Good that you have told us the pros and cons. We do not want this settlement to be recorded in the form of an award. So I told them that in that case, I will have to pass an order because ultimately I have to terminate these proceedings. If not by way of an award, I will have to terminate it by way of an order. And I told them 32(2) A, B, and C. I explained the gist of A, B, and C to them. And I told them that you guys will have to do something by which an order can be passed. So plain and simple, what they did was they resorted to 32(2) and they simply agreed on the termination of the proceedings. They agreed on the termination of the proceedings under 32(2). I went on to simply pass an order saying that the parties have settled and they have agreed on the termination of the proceedings. By virtue of 32(2) of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, I am passing an order and hereby the arbitral proceedings stand terminated. So this has been one of my experiences of using section 30 and section 32. Section 30 was how I sort of promoted a settlement between the parties, as much as I did not bring about the settlement because I cannot, because I am the arbitrator. I cannot bring about a settlement between the parties. But then, yes, of course, I can encourage a settlement if they want to settle. Thankfully, they did settle. And then how I terminated it by using 32(2) in that particular scenario, because the parties simply agreed that fine, we are agreeing that we want to terminate this. So that was one case. In fact, that was the only case in which such a situation arose, in which I actually saw section 32 coming into play and an order being passed under section 32. Otherwise, mostly let it be as an arbitrator or as a lawyer who represents parties in arbitration proceedings or in allied litigation. I have seen section 32 only from the point of view of arbitral proceedings being terminated by way of a final award. That was the only case in which I actually saw an order by way of which the arbitral proceedings got terminated.
Sir, last can refer and we can end the meeting. Sir, whether there the people are continuously again and again asking about what if there is no award and only settlement agreement, and what if one of the party breaches that? What is the remedy and what is the scenario in that situation? Whether reinitiation of arbitration or court proceeding?
See, say for example, there is a settlement agreement between the parties. Okay. Now, say the parties do not want the settlement agreement to be recorded in the form of an award. Then the only way I can terminate it is by way of an order under section 32 to either A, B or C. C will not come into play. It's either 32 to A or B. Now, I will go on to pass an order saying that it stands terminated because the parties have agreed, or that the claimant has gone on to withdraw the claim. So therefore, in terms of 32(2)(a), the arbitral proceedings stand terminated. Now, say for example, one of the parties to the dispute breaches the settlement. In that scenario, now let us take A and B. So there is a settlement between A and B, and it's in the form of a settlement agreement. For some reason, they did not want it in the form of an award. They were happy with the settlement agreement. Now, under the settlement agreement, A had to do ABCD things, B had to do some other PQRS things. A did his part, B fails to do his part. So essentially, B breaches the settlement agreement. Now, when a party to an agreement breaches it, then what is the remedy that the other party has? All those remedies which are available for breach of a contract. One of those would be specific performance. So essentially, the only thing that A can do is to file a case against B for breach of a settlement agreement. There is nothing else. There is no other remedy that he has. There is no question of reinitiation. There is no question of reinitiation of the arbitral proceedings because those arbitral proceedings have terminated. They have terminated, and the only thing that now remains between the parties is a settlement agreement. So when an agreement breaches, what is the remedy that the aggrieved party has? All those remedies is what the aggrieved party will have. However, take this scenario. Say A and B in the settlement agreement incorporate various terms, and say A and B in that settlement agreement incorporate another arbitration clause. That is, if there is a dispute which arises under the settlement agreement, then in that scenario, the party shall resort to arbitration. Then in that case, if B breaches some of his covenants under the agreement, then the option that A will have is not to file a case against B seeking specific performance of the settlement agreement. What A can do is to initiate an arbitration under the settlement agreement for breach of provisions of the settlement agreement. So the advisable course of action is, when there is a settlement between the parties, let the settlement agreement be recorded in the form of an award. That close loops it. If it is left as an agreement, you are open to a lot of risk, because if one of the parties does not fulfill his part, then the only recourse that the other party has is to sue him, and that takes us all back to square one.
Right, sir. I think all these questions have been answered, and we can't extend it because of the time. So you can refer all your question to sir at the email ID adv.arjunnatarajan@gmail.com. So the last question, section 30 and section 32, if it goes by the title, and this is my, I mean, I get this question, it might be very silly, you can correct me if I'm wrong. What if the settlement agreement will arise during the arbitration proceedings, right? What if you and I being in a dispute and Sandeep is the arbitrator, and we go to the Sandeep with settlement agreement and ask Sandeep to give it the color of arbitral award?
No, that can't happen, because section 30 talks about a settlement which is arising during an arbitration. It doesn't talk of any other settlements.
No,
it can't be the case that.
Is there any scenario like this? Prior to the arbitration, if we both agree to a settlement agreement and through conciliation or through mediation, for example, now we go to the arbitrator and ask or request the arbitrator to give it the color of arbitral award, and then we go in and enforce it.
It can't happen, because if there has been a settlement between the parties, there is no point in going before the arbitrator. How are you going to appoint the arbitrator when there is no dispute between the parties, because we have settled it?
No, again, see.
Now, answering your question specifically, if the parties have ended up using conciliation and they have settled, then the settlement shall be governed by Section 73 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, and that settlement agreement will have the same status and effect as any other award. And say that settlement agreement, which is born out of a conciliation, is breached by one of the parties, then the other party can go on to enforce that settlement agreement like he would enforce any other arbitral award, if it is a conciliation. If it is a mediation, this is a mediation which is in a private setting, right? A and B have simply gone on to appoint one Mr. X as the private mediator, and he has brought about a settlement. That settlement is in the form of an agreement. If that agreement is breached, then the only remedy that the aggrieved party has is to sue that other party for breach of contract and for specific performance.
So you are saying that the agreement.
So if it's a conciliation, it is protected.
The agreement entered by the parties would be in form of a contract, and then we can go and sue for breach of contract, right?
If the parties have resorted to mediation.
All right, sir.
Okay, and I'm not talking about a court-appointed mediation. I'm talking about a private mediation in which Arjun and Rahul have a dispute. They just appoint Sandeep as the arbitrator. Sandeep has been appointed by Arjun and Rahul. Sandeep brings about a settlement. Excellent, all done. There is an agreement between Arjun and Rahul. Under that agreement, Arjun has to do some things. Rahul has to do some other things. Arjun does not play his part. What Rahul can do, Rahul can only sue Arjun for breach of contract and for specific performance.
I think we can end our meeting, and thank you so much, sir, for which a very insightful and enhancing lecture. I mean, not a lecture, but a discussion. You gave us, what I personally feel is that it was a more of teaching us the basic and jurisprudence, and each and every word was emphasized by you. And I think that...
No, once again, emphasizing on each and every word is not jurisprudence. It's about principles of statutory interpretation. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Sorry, I'm still a student. I'm bound to commit mistake.
Doesn't matter.
So thank you again for giving your time and your knowledge to us. So thank you so much, guys, for joining. We'll be meeting again tomorrow at the same time with new speaker. So be present there at 7:30 p.m. Thank you so much.
And just two requests. Number one, Rahul, you please share the transcript of the entire chat with me, so that I can share whatever answers that I could not discuss during the course of this discussion. Number one. And number two, Rahul, please share my email address on the chat box. I am trying to do that, but
I have
one second. I'll just key in my email address.
Yes, sir.
Please email your queries, concerns, clarifications, criticisms, anything without any hesitation. This lecture was always meant to end, but this discussion was never meant to end. So let us keep this going.
Yes, sir. I'll just take out the chat and we'll send it to you. Anyway, thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll meet together.
You're most welcome.
At the same time with new speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you all.